Waze is one of the apps on my phone and is an app that some of us may already use. But for those of us who do not know what Waze is, it is a navigation app. Waze is known for its traffic updates that users, those who are driving and riding in their cars while traveling, can access Waze. The best part, and what Waze is known mostly for, is its ability to save time in traffic because it's powered by the users of the app during their travels. When using Waze to go anywhere, whether long distance or around the corner, when users update the app while they are driving, others who are behind them can see where there is a traffic jam ahead. They can see if there are road outages, police presence and activity, or any dangers on the route in which they are navigating. This beautiful app automatically updates your route. And what I have found interesting, whether it bothers me sometimes or not, Waze will reroute you to the most efficient, fastest way to your destination. The reality about navigation and rerouting, sometimes when our navigation devices reroute, or it might just be me, I think that it may be wrong. I think that when it reroutes, I feel like I can say to that app or that navigation, but there's a better way. But trust the rerouting. Because today, when we look at this last Sunday in Advent, the Epiphany, the Three Kings Day, we see a story where in these two scripture passages that have been read for you, there was an end destination, but there was also a prophetic message that would move us along the route to the destination. Here in the beginning of this text that we started with Isaiah, the prophet Isaiah's message moves us from a place of prophecy to a place of final destination. Here, the book of Isaiah is like a Waze map. It gives you the prophetic message of what is to come. It gives you the prophetic message of what you should see on the way. It gives you the prophetic message of what you are looking for during this travel. And I would say and venture to say that the prophet Isaiah was a key user in helping those in Israel at the time reach their destination. The reality is that here in the text, in the book of Isaiah, in the prophetic message, Isaiah was used to declare a message to the people. Not only was he used to declare a message to the people, he was also declaring a message to the nation of Israel. Here he was showing how it was possible for the promise of what they knew to become a reality. Here in Isaiah 60, he's addressing the people and what it means to live in the glory of the Lord. He's addressing the people when it looks like there is darkness all around over them and over the nation. He's addressing the people of Israel, giving them a mention that there is going to come a light. There will be a light that kings and nations will be drawn to. So go ahead and lift up your eyes. Prophet Isaiah, in addressing the people in Isaiah 60, is beginning to address them in such a way that they saw the intentionality of what the Lord was getting ready to do. It was a prophetic message that was giving them hope. It was a prophetic message for the people to see that light was coming, that the darkness would be leaving. And here in this message, he's not just addressing the people and the light. He's addressing the people so that they understand that they cannot live just with the light for themselves and fail the nation, fail to bring light to others. He is addressing the people in this text of that time, and not only addressing them, but what is to come in the distant future. Here, the prophet Isaiah speaks of what it means when darkness comes over the earth and darkness comes over the people. And here is a message of hope. He's sharing with the people that a light to the nations is coming, but that light will be done through divine intervention. That's the only way that change is possible. And here in the first 6 verses of Isaiah chapter 60, we hear that God moves and the Lord moves, but doesn't move but one way, and that's with intentionality. Here we see in the beginning of the text that God is intentional. The Lord is intentional with sharing the glory with the people of Israel. It was important for them to be able to receive this glory of Israel because a part of it was them to be able to see how God was covering them in the midst of the darkness. He was giving hope to those in Israel that even when the darkness covers the earth, even when the darkness is over the people, even when evil exists in the world, even when there is wrong happening all around you, it is a prophetic message to know that when we are living in the Lord's camp, when we are God's people, that God's glory should and will appear in you. That's good news for the Israelites. The darkness that is talked about, when you look at the research and the study, it talks about the sin, not of the people, but what's happening in the country. It talks about the enemy and the evil that exists, but there will be light. There will be light in the midst of evil. There will be light in the midst of darkness. And the way that God's people are to carry themselves is that when we see the light, we are to bring that light to the others, bring that light to the nations. It's not just for ourselves, but it's also for the people who have yet to see the light. Why is this prophetic message important? Because it begins to share the destination and what to look for. It begins to share the road maps that design that you will know when the light comes. The end of the 6 verses ends with the camels will come and cover your land. The young camels of Midian and Ephah and all from Sheba will come bearing gold and incense, proclaiming the praise of the Lord. This prophetic message in Isaiah chapter 60 is to get us to understand that there is a destination that comes with being a part of God's kingdom. And a part of that destination comes through divine intervention. And that divine intervention that the prophetic word of Isaiah is to share of the Messiah who is coming. But the Messiah doesn't get to just show up easily. The Messiah doesn't get to enter this world without problems. No, there are problems and dangers that lie ahead. But the truth be it told, the light will still come. Along this route for divine intervention, along this pattern of traffic roads and road outages and dangers, one of the things we see that the Jesus we know is coming, but is not just coming without some sign of danger. We hear in Matthew chapter 2 and verses 1 through 12 that Jesus was now born in Bethlehem, Judea. And because of this time, during this time, the king was Herod. Just before we get to what the Magi do, it's important to understand that when Jesus was born during this time, the Judean region had gone through a significant amount of social and cultural and religious tensions leading up to Herod's reign. The prior dynasty before Herod came in was culturally Jewish, but many of them were upset about those who took control of both the kingship as well as the priesthood. Herod was entering into his position, and he got this position mainly because of his father's influence. And when Herod took the throne, it came with the Roman army to help him take back Jerusalem. But there was one problem when Herod was there. What we know about King Herod, and I wrestle with commentators and historians. I like the commentators version. The historians I'm still grappling with. But But the commentators share that the challenge with Herod was that he wanted no one to challenge his authority and power. The commentators suggest that early Christians during that time revered to King Herod as a tyrant. We don't know what tyrants are in this century, but King Herod was a tyrant for those who were living in Judea at that time. And so he was on the throne. He was one who used his money, influence, and power as a part of the nature of the economy of Judea. And here in the midst of his leadership, here come the Magi. They came from the east to Jerusalem, and they were asking a question: where is the one who's been born king to the Jews? They knew that the king had been born because guess what? They saw the light. They saw the star. They saw that it had come. And what I love about the intentionality here is that the Magi came not to see Jesus, but they came to worship him. The good news that the Magi here, they knew what the prophet had spoken in Isaiah, and they intentionally came with it on their mind to worship Jesus. They were sure about their destination. They were going to follow the light. They were looking for the light. They were looking at the stars. But just like a tyrant, the one who wanted all of the authority, the one who wanted to be the king of the Jews, the one who wanted to have all power in his hands, he was disturbed about what was going on. He was disturbed about why the Magi were looking for Jesus. And so when he got disturbed, he called all of the chief priests. He called all of the teachers of the law. He called all the good Jews to the table, the ones who he knew the Bible, the ones who knew the prophetic message to come. And he asked them to share where is this Messiah to be born. The King Herod, was looking for the destination of Jesus. And when they shared the prophetic message, after they gave him the plan and the route to where Jesus would be and who Jesus would be for the people, he then secretly called the Magi. Now, why would the king secretly call the Magi? If you are the king, you the one that has all power and authority, you are the one that don't want to be challenged. Why do you need to do anything in secret? But King Herod, he was a shoot. He was a diplomat. He was the one who was funding much of the work in Judea. And so he didn't want everybody to know what was getting ready to go down. And so when he secretly called the Magi and found out from them the exact time that the star had appeared, he then sent them and said, go and search carefully for this child, and as soon as you find him, report to me so that I may go and worship him. Now, the trick of the enemy here is that if the Magi didn't know who the light was, if the Magi didn't know the prophetic message, they would have gave him everything he needed. But the good news is, here in the text, the king, Herod, was the enemy. And what we learn that is applicable to our lives today is that the enemy will use others to get information to block the plan of God on your life. King Herod was going to use the information from the chief priests and use the information from the teachers of the law, use the information from the Magi in order to block what God had already put in place. But the good news about this is that you can't stop God, and you can't stop what God is getting ready to do. The enemy will seem as if the intent is pure. King Herod made it seem like he wanted to do what the Magi wanted to do. But the difference is that the Magi had the intent of going to worship Jesus, but the king had the intent of killing Jesus. The Magi had the intent of going to see and to worship the light of the world, but the king was going to diminish the light. And the good news is, because the Magi understood the prophetic message that was in Isaiah, they understood that divine intervention had been born. They understood that light was coming to the world. They understood that there was a destination, and that destination was get to Mary, to get where the baby was, to get where Jesus would be. And so they continued on their destination. And when they got to to the final place. They stopped where the child was. And when they saw the star, it says that the Magi, they didn't go there and say, Jesus, we're here to worship you. They didn't go there and stop and wonder. No, they went overjoyed. They went excited. They went with gifts in hand, and they went to worship Christ. The best part about this text is that they came in the place with joy. Why is that good news in 2026? When evil tyrants of the world think that they are in charge, when it looks like there's darkness over the land, when it looks like there is no hope, we should come in the church of the living God overjoyed that we serve the light of the world, the one who shines over darkness, the one who can cast all pain away. Here, when they got to the destination of Jesus, they worshiped him. And not only did they worship him, they worshiped him bringing gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. They worshiped him knowing that the prophetic word in Isaiah said what was to come. But the best thing about going to worship is that text teaches us, if you ever smelled frankincense and myrrh, they have it in incense, they have it in oils. What the best part about it is that when you come in contact to worship Jesus, there's a sweet fragrance that goes before us. You should go into the place when you come into church, when you go into your home, private places of worship, you should first enter with joy, and secondly, enter with the intent that you will see Jesus. The Magi, they went to see Jesus. They knew the destination of where they're going. The prophetic message in Isaiah had given them every single place and what to expect on their destination. But the best part about this is after they saw Jesus, they didn't go back to their land the same way they came. The text says they were rerouted. They went a different route. The reason that's good news is no matter what's going on around you in 2026, no matter when it looks like darkness is coming, look to the light. Look to the strength and for where all your help comes from. Look for the light. And so even if you find yourself in danger, look for the reroute that God is sending you. Because at the end of the day, the prophetic message in Isaiah came to pass. You will get to your final destination. You will get to the place that God has you. But don't forget that the light that is for you from Jesus is not just for you. It's for others to see the light of Christ for you. It is others to see Jesus through you. It is for us to take that light into a world of evil. It's for the church, for those who call themselves Christians, for those who understand and have seen the light, for those who have accepted salvation and Jesus Christ as the finisher of their faith. It's to take that light to someone who's living in darkness. It's to take that light to someone who needs to see Jesus. It's to take that light to someone who needs peace. It's to take that light to someone who needs hope, to someone who needs joy, to someone who needs strength, to someone who's downtrodden. Our job is to be the light of the world. As the praise team comes, a lot of times when the Christmas and Advent season is over, we jump immediately into a new year saying, God, what do I need you to do differently for me this year? God, you know what I went through last year. And we come up with all these resolutions of what we need to change. We know the gym was packed January 1. We know that people started lifestyle changes and alterations to make their lives differently. But I would challenge the church to hold on to Advent 365 days a year. Hold on to the fact that Jesus is coming. Hold on to the fact that Jesus was not born just so Mary could say that she had a son, but he was born to be the light of the world and to give us that light for others to see. Hold on in the midst of darkness that you are the light of the world. And so when the enemy comes, when the tyrants of this world stand and make you feel like that they are in control, my text says, the prophetic message says, there is only one king, one true living king, and that king is Jesus. So when we face dangers on the road ahead, trust in that light, the light, and follow the light of Christ. Because when we do that, I do know and I believe the text when it says, the first shall be last and the last shall be first. We have hope in the midst of darkness. The prophet Isaiah, I said I was closing. Okay, the second close. The prophet Isaiah says that nations and kings will come. So those who think they are king will have to bow at the name of Jesus. My Bible tells me that every tongue shall confess and every knee shall bow to the one and only King. So do not get discouraged in 2026. Do not fret when it looked like the kings and tyrants of this world are in charge, because the message of hope and light is with us every day. Jesus came so that we could have life and to have it more abundantly. Hold on to the message of Advent. Don't let 365 days pass and we wait till next year looking for hope, peace, love, joy, and light. Speak that in your life daily, because Jesus Christ has come and that light shines in you. Amen.
The world waits for a miracle. The heart longs for a little bit of hope. Oh, come, Emmanuel. The child prays for peace on earth, and she's calling out from a sea of hurt. Oh, come, Emmanuel.